Hello, I'm David Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, and I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of Lorcana, Not the Meta. And what I try to do is I try to build decks and look at decks that don't necessarily follow the meta, which is basically what the meta is it's what you want to play in order to be competitive and to win the tournaments. I mean, that's your objective anyways, is to beat your opponent. But I'm trying to look at other stuff that's maybe more fun and using different combos that generally aren't considered as good, and just maybe shed some light on them, because the meta usually ends up being boiled down to a handful of decks, and there's a lot of different cards and a lot of different combinations, and I'm trying to touch on that for everybody else, especially me who like to play casual. Alright, so let's go take a look at Jamie's Sapphire and Steel deck. First up, I've got all the one-cost cards. It's a one-cost inkable, Develop Your Brain. Look at the top two cards of your deck, put one in your hand and the other on the bottom of your deck. I like this card because instead of just drawing a card, you get to draw two, so you kind of see what you got. You got some choices. Instead of just getting whatever card you draw, now you got a little more options. And I like cards that give you options, and this is a good card. If you're playing a Sapphire deck, there's no reason for you not to be playing Develop Your Brain. Next up, we have a character. It's Captain Hook. He's a one-cost inkable. He's a 1-2, but he's got Challenger 2, which bumps him up to a 3-2 when he's challenging. And that's good because he can take out pretty much most other characters. And that's nice to have that one-on-one exchange instead of you having to commit two characters to defeat and banish one character. Next, we have an uninkable Fire the Cannons, but for one to deal 2 damage to chosen character, this is where it's at, and you really need to have these in your deck. If you can get the Captain Hook that brings these back and build a deck around them, this could be really dangerous, I think. Maybe even get a little bounce in there. But anyways, Fire the Cannons, super good. And so far, we only got 4 uninkable. We're going to see how many uninkable cards he has in this deck. But, honestly, it really doesn't even matter the way this deck runs. All right, let's see what we got. So these are all my 2-cost cards, 2-cost inkable cards. Again, another uninkable card. 1 jump ahead, action, song. And it can be sung by character cost 2 or more, but he generates so much ink in here, he doesn't even have to worry about doing that. And put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted, which that right there gets around the fact that this is uninkable. So if he had a Fire the Cans on the top of his deck, or if he had another 1 jump ahead on top of his deck, it just goes straight into his inkwell and he can use it for ink. Totally gets around that. It's great. Now I have Grandma Talia. She's a 2-cost inkable, and she's a 1-1. She quests for 1 lore, and when this character is banished, you may put this card into your inkwell face down and exerted. So what you're going to want to do with this card is, it's great to quest with her, but you really want to try to take out other characters with this. Even if the character's way tougher than her and you can't take them out, you definitely want to go ahead and use Grandma Talia. That way you can get her in inkwell and start getting that ink built up. And you'll see why in just a little bit. You probably know what's coming if you played Lorcana any length of time. All right, next we have a 2-cost inkable, Beast's Mirror. It's an item, and for 3, and you exert it, so you have to exert it and pay 3 ink. If you have no cards in your hand, draw a card. He's got 2 of these in here, and I am surprised that he only has 2 of these, but it serves him well because he runs out of cards fast in this deck, and he's figured out a way to keep replenishing his hand. And this also gets to some very other critical cards that he has in his deck, which we'll talk about those in a little bit. So 3-cost, uninkable. Again, more uninkable cards. Mickey Mouse, he's a 1-3, and when you play this character, you can put the top card of your deck in your inkwell face down and exerted, and he quests for 1 lore. The big thing is getting ink into the inkwell, and this makes you go through your deck faster so other things can come up. Smash. It's a 3-cost inkable. It's an action. Deal 3 damage to chosen character. Again, takes out most characters you're going to come across very easily. Next we have the Prince. 3-cost inkable. He's a 1-3. Quest for 2 lore. And he's got Bodyguard. Love, love, love Bodyguard. One of my favorite abilities. Plus, he also has Resist. And this has messed me up a couple of times. Actually, more than that. Damage dealt to this character is reduced by 1. It's nice because it's not situational, it's not specific. If he shoots, If I shoot a Fire the Cannons at him, it's 1 less damage. If I do it again, it's 1 less damage. If I swing on him with another character, it's 1 less damage. You have to commit more resources to get this character off the board. The Prince is really good for 3 cost. He is banging. You definitely need to have him if you're playing Steel in your deck. Fishbone Quill. Definitely super meta. 3 cost inkable. Fishbone Quill is an item. You can exert it to put any card in your hand in your inkwell face down. So if you're sitting on Fire the Cannons and you got other characters and your opponent has characters that have ward, you can use Fishbone Quill to throw this into your inkwell face down. And when it goes in your inkwell, it's not exerted. So it's still a resource for you to use that turn. So Fishbone Quill is very, very handy to get troublesome cards out of your hand. And as he should, he has 4 of them in here. Very, very smart. He needs to have 4 Fishbone Quills. Okay, coming up, we got some 4 cost stuff. Oh, this is where it starts to get dicey for me. 4 cost inkable, 3/3, and he quests for 3 lore. He's great. Let's just face it, he's great. If he hits the board, I'm in trouble because that's 3 more lore every turn that he's swinging for, and it don't take a lot to get to 20 once you get Prince Charming out. And he has not just 1, not just 2, but 3 different Prince Charmings. Good choice. He doesn't need a 4th because he has Belle, which is a 4 cost inkable, 2/4, which means you're going to have to commit more resources to get her off the board because there's not a lot of stuff that does 4 damage in one go without some other kind of assistance. Now, during your turn, you can put an additional card from your hand into your inkwell face down. Again, gets troublesome cards that you can't ink into your inkwell, which is smart. She quests for 1 lore, but if you have 10 or more cards in your inkwell, this character gets +4 lore. So if you have 10 cards in your inkwell, she's questing for 5. I've noticed he doesn't put her out early game. He doesn't put her out as soon as he can do it. No. He waits until he can put her out because then he'll have more support for her, especially if he can get out the Prince. I'm always used to the other bodyguards like Goofy and Mickey and Donald and Simba. I always forget that the Prince is a bodyguard and he's got resist. So I ought to cut through him before I can even get Belle. And I don't know if that's exactly what he's really thinking when he's playing, but you can bet if he's got Belle, he's going to wait a turn or 2 to see if he can't get the Prince and get him out first before he gets Belle, or he's going to get Belle out and the Prince at the same time, or he's got the Prince and he wants to get Belle out now and then he does the Prince the next turn. I mean, any way he does it, it's great. And here we go. So we got Belle, we got 1, we got 2, we got 3, and of course a key card, we've got 4. And if that wasn't enough, 4 cost inkable item, Eye of the Fates. Tap, chosen character gets +1 lore this turn. 1, 2, and 3. Good cards, low cost, but yet because he's able to create so much ink with these cards, man, he gets these out quick, and it gets out of control pretty quickly. Even if I've seen games where he doesn't have Belle at all, but when he's got Prince Charming, he's got the bodyguard, he's got the Prince as a bodyguard, and he's got Eye of the Fates, it's still problematic. I mean, man, it is just so rough. God, I gotta put Belle on top of this stack, man. She's just too cool. She's awesome. All right, now let's take a look and see what the rest is. Oh man, this is all good stuff. Grab Your Sword. Now, a character costs 5 or more can sing this song for free, but he's only got a few cards that can get away with it, but he usually doesn't have to sing it because, again, he has plenty of ink in his inkwell in order just to hard cast, as we say in the Magic world. And all hard cast is instead of using special ability, you're just paying the casting cost. But anyways, it's uninkable, so it could be a dead card in your hand, especially if other people have ward or they're super tough and it's just not a good play at that time. You can use like Fishbone Quill to get that in your inkwell, but man, this is always a good play. Deal 2 damage to each opposing character. 1, 2, and 3. So he's got 3 of those, which is probably more than enough because he's got a whole new world next. 5 cost uninkable. Again, another character with a cost 5 or more can exert themselves to sing the song for free. Each player discards their hand and draws 7 cards. I love it when he plays this card because it replenishes my hand, and I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to throw all these cards out into play. But even still, it gives him a big advantage too, because he is always scraping for cards. And if he gets a whole new world in his hand, he will play it once, twice, 3 times, and even 4 times if necessary. And it's a good idea to have this in here because I see him all the time scraping the bottom of the barrel, digging for cards. This comes up, he plays it right away with no hesitation, as so should you if you're playing this kind of deck. Next up, we got Beast. He's a 5-cost inkable, 4/4, so he's pretty resilient. People are going to have to commit more resources to get him off the field. He can quest for 2 lore, and when you play this character, you can banish chosen item. Very nice, because some people have, like I have the Face, for instance, or Fishbone Quill. You know, you can cast that. If I have a Fishbone Quill, you can cast that to get it going and get it out of there. And he's got 4 of them, which is great. Usually by the time these drop and he's playing these, he's already got most of what he needs to win the game. This is just kind of a nice way to round things out. And there's a lot of times where he doesn't have any items to banish, and that's just kind of like an extra G-Wiz good thing. It's just he's tough, he's good at taking out characters, and he can quest for 2 more lore, which is really, really nice. Again, got a lot of uninkable stuff, got a lot of high-end stuff, but the way this deck runs, man, you definitely going to have enough ink to cast them. If you draw your hand and you have a lot of these uninkable cards, actually with any deck, throw that hand back and get 7 more cards. That's what the mulligan's for, to give you a fighting chance. And I've been trying to condition myself to do that. It's nice to throw away, you know, like most of your hand's good. You got a couple dead cards in your hand. Because to me, I wouldn't have Whole New World right away unless I thought I wouldn't even keep it unless I thought I would definitely get up there pretty quick. Early game, I wouldn't worry about it, but man, at any other point, you're definitely going to want to keep it. All right, so let's take a look at this last batch. Simba, I don't see these guys get played too often, probably because they're 7 cost, but by that time, a lot of time, he's already won with Belle. But Simba's a 7 cost inkable, which is nice. High cost card, inkable. 4/6, and he quests for 2 lore, and he's got Challenger 4, so he can be an 8/6 when he's challenging somebody, which is amazing. And plus, during his turn, this character gains Evasive, which is super nice. And I don't even know if we ever get to that point, because by the time Simba hits the field, he's winning next turn. Or I'm running to the end and I manage to eke out a victory. But this deck, I know it's got a lot of meta stuff in here, because the Fishbone Quill and a Belle, look, Prince Charming. I mean, it's ridiculous, man. This stuff is great. But it doesn't matter if your deck is meta. If it's good and you like to play it, man, go for it. And I tell you, some of the best stuff in here is the Prince. Both of the Princes, they're really, really good. Even without Belle, just these guys alone make this deck, I think, really good. Man, I love this deck. I love playing against it. And I don't know, it's not frustrating. Well, I guess sometimes it is. But what's interesting is I have several decks I'm building, rebuilding, building again. And he's playing the same deck every time. Drives me crazy because I'm constantly building, rebuilding, doing other decks, trying something different. He plays the same deck every time, all the time, and it's always this tennis match back and forth. But that's what's great, because he does play it all the time. He knows it so well. He knows what to expect, and he's play tested it so much that by now he doesn't have to worry about how it plays, because he knows it works. He had one card which he was waiting on, and that was the... Where is it in here? I don't know if it's here. Here. Where's that card? Oh, here it is. Yeah. So he was waiting for another Grab Your Sword to come in, and so he's got it right here. And originally he had Let the Snow Rage On, which is actually this card right here. 3 cost uninkable versus 5 cost uninkable. Deal 2 damage to chosen creature, chosen character, or a character 3 or less could sing it. But he doesn't have to worry about that because he got plenty of ink. And then draw a card. And that card draw is nice, but he's got other ways to draw cards. And this just seems kind of like, whatever. But the Grab the Sword is so much better, because especially on decks like mine that are faster, but lower strength characters deal 2 damage to each opposing character. That's pretty heavy. That's a nice card. So definitely I think, even though this is more expensive, this gives you draw power, this is a way better card, I think. At least in this particular deck build, I think it's really, really good. Man, this is great. And I super appreciate Jamie for letting me borrow his deck and tear it apart and put it back together again. And no, it's a really fun deck. He's a really great guy, and I really do like playing against this deck. We evenly matched, and we have a really, really good time playing, and it's so fun because there's so many games that one of us is on the ropes. It's so close, and sometimes one of us comes back just out of nowhere. Sometimes it just doesn't happen. And I gotta admit, man, it's me a lot of times. But I give him a good run for his money. Well, anyways, thank you very much for watching today's episode of Lorcana, not the meta. I hope you had a really good time, as I did. And again, I'm David Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, telling you to stay safe, play great games, and I'll see you real soon.